The sound of laughter filled the air. Hers. High-pitched, playful, and completely unfamiliar in the way it used to be with me. It was coming from the kitchen. Our kitchen. I had just walked in, exhausted after a long day, expecting to find Jessica where she usually was this time of night, scrolling through her phone on the couch, maybe pretending to watch some reality show she didn't care about. But instead, I heard him. A man's voice, low and amused, blending with hers in a way that made my stomach twist. I stopped in the hallway. My breath slowed. I was supposed to turn the corner, walk in like I didn't hear anything, like I wasn't already tasting the betrayal on my tongue. But my body wouldn't move. My ears strained instead. Then came her voice, soft and teasing. "You're such an idiot." She giggled, and I heard the distinct sound of ice clinking in a glass. "Yeah, but I make you laugh," the man said, casual, comfortable, like he belonged here. Jessica didn't correct him. I walked in. She was standing at the counter, her back to me, wearing that thin little satin robe she only ever wore when she wanted something. Across from her, leaning against my goddamn kitchen island, was a man I had never seen before. Dark hair, sharp jawline, a confidence about him that instantly made my fists clench. He looked like the type of guy who thought the world owed him something, who thought he could walk into my home and drink whiskey out of my glass while flirting with my wife. Jessica turned her head, saw me, and had the audacity to smile like this was nothing. "Hey, babe," she said, as if nothing was happening. The man turned his head, barely interested. "Oh hey. I walked further in, slowly, controlled, my pulse hammering in my throat. "Who the hell is this?" Jessica rolled her eyes, like I was the one being ridiculous. "Relax, Michael," she said, setting her glass down. "This is Ryan. We were just having a drink." Ryan. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he looked at her, the way he didn't even have the decency to look guilty, told me everything. "Just having a drink," I repeated, my voice steady, though my hands were already curling into fists. Jessica exhaled loudly, dramatic, as if she was the one being inconvenienced by this. "Yes, a drink. You don't need to freak out." Ryan smirked, picking up his glass, taking a sip, completely unbothered by the situation he had walked into. That was the moment I knew. That was the moment everything inside me went cold. Because only a man who had nothing to hide could sit there so relaxed in another man's home. Or a man who knew he already had my wife. I turned my gaze back to Jessica, waiting, daring her to say something that would make this make sense. But she didn't. Instead, she sighed again and had the nerve to look bored. "Michael, don't be dramatic." I let out a short laugh. Dramatic? Ryan watched us like this was some kind of show. Like he had front row seats to my downfall and was enjoying every goddamn second. "You want to tell me what's really going on here?" I asked, my voice so calm it scared even me. Jessica's lips parted. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Doubt? Annoyance? I wasn't sure. But she hesitated. That was all I needed. Ryan, however, didn't hesitate. He smirked again, tipping his glass toward me in some silent, condescending toast. And then Jessica said the words that blew my world apart. "Michael, we need to talk. Michael, we need to talk." The words hung in the air like poison. I could feel them sinking into my skin, rotting everything beneath. I didn't move. Neither did she. For a second, the entire room was frozen. Then Ryan, this smug son of a bitch, had the nerve to take another sip of my whiskey before setting the glass down with a deliberate clink. Like he belonged here. Like this wasn't the moment my marriage was burning to the ground. I took a slow step forward, locking eyes with Jessica. "Talk," I said. My voice was level, but inside, I was seconds away from detonating. She hesitated, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she was deciding how to say it. Like this was some office meeting where she needed to present bad news in the least disruptive way possible. I already knew, but I wanted to hear her say it. Jessica let out a deep breath, like this was so hard for her. "I've been seeing Ryan," she said finally. "Seeing. Not screwing. Not cheating. Not betraying your husband like a lying, soulless snake. Just seeing. Like this was some casual dating arrangement. Not our marriage." Ryan stayed quiet, watching me like I was a wild animal, like he was just waiting for me to charge. Smart man. Jessica, though. Jessica was already slipping into her usual game. Michael, listen. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I laughed. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. Oh, you didn't mean for it to happen? What? You tripped and fell on his. Don't be disgusting, she snapped. Can you please be mature about this? Mature. Mature. She was standing in our kitchen, in my home, practically draped in the aftermath of another man, and she wanted me to be mature. I turned to Ryan. So what's your deal? You like taking married women? Or just mine? He smirked again. Again. Like this was a game. Man, I didn't take her, he said, stretching like he had all the time in the world. She came to me. Jessica shot him a look. Not embarrassment. Annoyance. Like he had broken some unspoken rule about what they were supposed to say. I exhaled, clenching my jaw so tight it hurt. How long? Jessica looked away. Michael. How long? She sighed. For months. For months. I had spent the last 4 months thinking she was tired. Thinking she was stressed. Thinking maybe, just maybe, I needed to do more to make her happy. Meanwhile, she was off with him. Something inside me snapped. Get out, I said. Jessica's eyes widened. What? You heard me. Get out. Both of you. Jessica scoffed. Michael, don't be ridiculous, we need to talk. No. No, we don't. I turned to Ryan. You too. Get the hell out of my house before I do something you'll regret. Ryan watched me for a second, then shrugged. All right, man. He reached for his whiskey, tossed back the rest, and set the glass down like he owned the place. Then he turned to Jessica. You coming? And she hesitated. Not because she was ashamed. Not because she regretted it. Because she was deciding. I felt it. That moment. That unbearable moment when you realize someone is weighing their options, and you're not the winning one. Then she grabbed her coat, and just like that, she left. The door clicked shut behind them. Just like that, they were gone. Silence filled the house. A deep, aching kind of silence, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for me to react. I didn't. Not at first. I stood there, staring at the empty space where Jessica had been. The kitchen still smelled like her perfume, something floral and soft, something I had once loved. Now it made me sick. For months. She had been lying to my face for 4 months, sleeping in my bed, eating at my table, kissing me goodbye, and the whole time she had him. I walked over to the counter and grabbed Ryan's empty whiskey glass. I turned it in my hands, feeling the warmth from where his fingers had been. Then, without thinking, I threw it. It shattered against the wall. A sharp, violent sound that broke the silence into 1,000 tiny pieces. That was when it hit me. She wasn't coming back. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and opened our messages. Me? Where are you? Jessica, Michael, please. Let's talk tomorrow. Talk tomorrow. She had just torched our entire marriage, and she wanted to talk tomorrow. I should have let it go. I should have turned my phone off, walked away, let her marinate in the mess she created. But I couldn't. Me just answer one thing. Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just waiting for me to catch you? The 3 little dots appeared. Then they disappeared. Then they appeared again. Jessica. I don't know. I don't know. I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I called her mother. Nancy picked up on the second ring. Michael. Her voice was groggy. She must have been asleep. She's cheating on me, I said. No warning. No preamble. Just the truth, raw and ugly. Silence. Then, slowly, Jessica. No, Nancy, the other wife I have. She exhaled sharply. Michael, did you know? My voice was cold, steady, dangerous. She hesitated. I felt my stomach drop. Nancy. Another pause. Then, finally, she told me she was unhappy. I didn't know she was. I let out a sharp laugh. Unhappy? Unhappy. That was her excuse? That was her justification? Michael, I'm so sorry. Nancy sounded like she meant it. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Not anymore. I hung up without another word. And then, for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt it. Not just the anger. Not just the betrayal. The loss. Jessica wasn't just my wife. She was my person. The one I told everything to. The one I built a life with. The one I never thought I'd have to live without. And now she was gone. Maybe she had been gone for a long time. I just hadn't seen it. But now I couldn't see anything else that I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. The way she hesitated before leaving. The way she chose him over me. Over us. By 5 a.m., I was still sitting in the dark, my mind replaying every conversation, every late-night excuse, every lie she had told. How many times had she come home to me after being with him? How many times had she kissed me, smiled at me, told me she loved me, while he was still on her skin? I wanted answers. No, I needed them. So, I did something I hadn't done in years. I tracked her phone. Jessica never turned off her location sharing. It was one of those things we set up years ago just in case. Back when trust wasn't a question, back when I thought we were solid. She never thought to disable it. Probably never expected me to check. But I did. And when I saw where she was, my blood turned to ice. She wasn't at a hotel. She wasn't at a friend's house. She was at his place. And I wasn't about to sit around and let that slide. I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and walked out the door. The drive was a blur. By the time I pulled up outside Ryan's apartment complex, the early morning sky was turning gray. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few scattered cars, including Jessica's. I sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles ached. What was I even doing? Was I about to storm up there, bang on his door, demand she come home? Would she even care? I didn't know, but I had to find out. I got out of the car, walked up to the building. The entrance was locked, but luck, or karma, was on my side. A sleepy-looking woman was just leaving, holding the door open for me without a second glance. I stepped inside, my pulse hammering. I checked the directory. Ryan's name wasn't on it, but I didn't need it. Jessica's location put her on the 4th floor. Apartment 407. I took the stairs, 2 at a time, my breath sharp and shallow. And then, finally, I was there. I raised my fist and knocked. Once, twice. Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, hesitant. The door cracked open. Jessica. Hair messy. Wearing his shirt. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. Michael. I didn't let her shock slow me down. Get your things. We're leaving. She blinked. Then, to my complete disbelief, she laughed. Are you serious? I stepped forward, forcing the door open wider. Dead serious. Then a voice came from inside. His voice. Jess. Who is it? Jess. I had never wanted to hit someone so badly in my life. Jessica turned, looking over her shoulder, then back at me. Michael, you need to leave. I let out a sharp breath, barely keeping myself together. Unbelievable. She sighed, rubbing her temples like I was the problem here. Look, I'm not doing this with you right now. Just go home. Go home. Like I was the one who didn't belong here. Like I was the intruder. A hand landed on the door, pushing it further open. Ryan, standing there, shirtless, looking so relaxed it made my skin crawl. Dude, he said, voice lazy mocking. You heard her. Something inside me snapped. I lunged. My fist connected with his jaw, a sharp, satisfying crack that sent him stumbling back. Jessica shrieked. Ryan hit the wall, cursing, eyes flashing with shock. I stepped back, shaking out my hand. Next time, stay away from married women. Jessica was on me in an instant, shoving at my chest. What the hell is wrong with you? I laughed, breathless. You really have to ask? Ryan groaned, rubbing his jaw. Jesus Christ, he muttered. You're insane. I turned to Jessica. Last chance. Are you coming with me or not? She stared at me, chest rising and falling, lips slightly parted. For a second, just a second, I thought she might actually say yes. But then, slowly, she shook her head. And just like that, it was over. I nodded once, swallowed back everything I wanted to say. Then I turned and walked away. That I didn't go home. Home wasn't home anymore. It was just a house now. 4 walls filled with her scent, her things, her lies. If I stepped foot in there, I'd go insane. So I drove. Aimlessly. Restlessly. The adrenaline from punching Ryan was still in my veins, buzzing like electricity under my skin. My knuckles ached, but I didn't care. She chose him. Even after I showed up, even after I fought for her, she still chose him. And what did she do when I hit him? Did she defend me? Did she scream at him for ruining our marriage? No. She screamed at me. That should have been the moment I gave up. That should have been the moment I let it go. But I couldn't. Because somewhere deep down, in the most pathetic, desperate part of me, I wanted to believe this wasn't real. That Jessica, the real Jessica, was still in there, buried under whatever insanity had taken hold of her. That maybe, just maybe, she'd wake up and realize what she'd done. And then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, expecting it to be her, wanting it to be her. But it wasn't. It was Nancy. I sighed and picked up. Yeah. Her voice was tight, urgent. Michael, where are you? I frowned. Driving. You need to come to my house. I blinked. What? It's Jessica, she said, her voice breaking slightly. She's here. I nearly slammed on the brakes. She's what? She showed up an hour ago, crying, saying she needed to talk to me. I've never seen her like this. Nancy hesitated, then lowered her voice. Michael, she's scared. I clenched my jaw. Of me? No, she said. Of him. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Ryan. What did she say? I demanded. Nancy sighed. Just get here. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I just turned the car around and floored it. 15 minutes later, I pulled up to Nancy's house. My heart was pounding, my mind racing with 1,000 possibilities. I barely made it to the front door before it swung open. Nancy stood there, her face tight with worry. She's inside. I stepped in. The house was warm, dimly lit. And then I saw her. Jessica was curled up on the couch, wearing one of Nancy's old sweaters, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw me, she flinched. I stopped. Something about that reaction hit me like a punch to the gut. What happened? I asked, my voice softer now. She sniffed, wrapping her arms around herself. I made a mistake. No shit. But I didn't say that. Not yet. What did he do? She hesitated. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, she said, he got angry. My pulse spiked. Angry how? Jessica squeezed her eyes shut. After you left, he was furious. Said I embarrassed him. That I made him look weak. She swallowed hard. He grabbed my wrist. Hard. Told me I wasn't going anywhere. My fists clenched. Nancy cut in, her voice firm. That's when she left. She drove straight here. Jessica looked up at me, her expression raw, vulnerable. Michael, I don't know what I was thinking. Her voice broke. I messed up. I ruined everything. For the first time since this nightmare started, she looked like the woman I used to know. I just stood there, staring at the woman who had burned our marriage to the ground and was now sifting through the ashes, trying to find something worth saving. Jessica swallowed hard, her eyes darting between me and Nancy like she was waiting for permission to exist in this space. Michael, please. Nancy exhaled, rubbing her temples. I'll give you two some privacy. She shot me a look before disappearing down the hall, leaving us alone. The silence was suffocating. Jessica shifted on the couch, pulling her legs under her. I was stupid, she stammered. I don't even know why I did it. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. You don't know why? I mean, she bit her lip, shaking her head. I felt like we were stuck. Like I wasn't happy. And then Ryan my jaw clenched. Ryan just what? Jessica flinched at my tone. He made me feel different, wanted. She sighed, looking down at her hands. But it wasn't real. I see that now. He's not who I thought he was. I folded my arms. And I'm supposed to give a damn about that? She looked up, guilt flashing across her face. Michael, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve anything from you after what I did. She took a shaky breath. But I don't want to lose you. I clenched my fists. You already lost me the second you walked out that door. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. Not this time. You chose him, I said. Again and again you chose him. And now what? He scares you a little. And suddenly I'm supposed to welcome you back with open arms. She wiped at her face, sniffling. I was wrong. No, I said, stepping closer, towering over her. Wrong is picking the wrong restaurant for dinner. Wrong is forgetting someone's birthday. Pointed at her. You weren't wrong. You were cruel. Jessica trembled, but I wasn't done. You humiliated me, I hissed. Made me feel like a fool in my own home. And when I stood there, fighting for you, you left with him anyway. She shook her head rapidly, tears spilling over. I was confused. I slammed my fist on the coffee table, making her jump. No, you knew what you were doing. You just didn't think you'd regret it. She let out a choked sob, burying her face in her hands. I don't know how to fix this. I exhaled, my whole body shaking. You can't fix this. Jessica looked up at me, eyes red, lips trembling. Do you still love me? The question punched the air from my lungs. Once, that answer would have been instant, unshakable. But now I didn't know anymore. I ran a hand down my face, stepping back. I don't think that matters. Jessica let out a small, broken sound. I'll do anything, she whispered. Anything to make this right. I stared at her. And then, before I could stop myself, I said the words that had been sitting in the back of my mind since the moment she confessed. He wants to share you. My voice was deathly calm. This is your last chance to walk away. Her breath hitched. I leaned in, my voice dropping lower. Because if you stay, if you really want to make this work, then you're going to prove it. Jessica's lips parted, confusion flashing in her eyes. Michael, what? I straightened up, my expression unreadable. You were so eager to have him when I wasn't looking. Let's see how eager you are when I am. Her face went pale. That's not funny. I tilted my head. Who's joking? Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. And that's when I knew. She wanted me back. She needed me back. But she didn't want it enough. I let out a breath, shaking my head. Yeah, that's what I thought. Jessica's eyes flooded with panic. Michael! I turned and walked toward the door. And this time, I was the one leaving her. Jessica scrambled off the couch, her bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. Michael, wait! I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I yanked the front door open, but before I could step out, she grabbed my wrist. Not forcefully, hesitant, like she was scared I'd shake her off. Please, she begged. Don't do this. Don't just walk away. I turned to look at her, really look at her. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the Jessica I had loved. The confident, sharp-tongued woman who could argue circles around me, who used to stand her ground no matter what. This woman was desperate. Not for me, for security, for an escape from the mess she created. And that realization, it ruined something inside me. You already did, I said, my voice low. Her grip tightened. I didn't mean to. I laughed bitterly. You didn't mean to cheat on me for 4 months? You didn't mean to leave with him? Jessica, stop. Just stop. Her eyes were glassy, her lips trembling. I was stupid, Michael. I was selfish. You were cruel. Jessica flinched, and for the first time, I saw guilt in her eyes. Real gut-deep guilt. Good. She deserved to feel every ounce of pain she put me through. But it didn't change anything. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. If Ryan had never put his hands on you, would you still be here? Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. That silence was my answer. I pulled my wrist free from her grasp. She let me go, but her fingers lingered in the air, like she wanted to reach for me again. Michael, I stepped out onto the porch. Take care, Jess. I saw it the moment she realized this was real, that there was no fixing this, that she had lost me for good. She staggered back, her hand covering her mouth, her whole body shaking. Please, she whispered. I turned away, and this time I was the one who didn't look back. I drove aimlessly, my mind numb, my heart hollowed out like someone had scooped it from my chest and left nothing behind. It was over. There was no more wondering, no more waiting, no more hoping for an apology that would magically undo the damage. Jessica was gone. And yet, why did I still feel anchored to the pain? I pulled into a random parking lot, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. And then, before I could stop it, I slammed my fists against the dashboard and screamed. Not in sadness, not in regret, but in rage. Because I had given everything to that woman. My love, my loyalty, my life. And she had thrown me away like I was nothing. And now, after all of it, after the cheating, the lies, the humiliation, she had the nerve to want me back. No, she didn't want me. She wanted the version of me that still loved her. The version that would have fought for her, forgiven her, bent over backwards to make things work. But that version of me, she had killed him. I wasn't that man anymore. I reached for my phone, my heart pounding, and pulled up her contact. My thumb hovered over her name. Then, with a deep breath, I hit block. A notification popped up. Are you sure you want to block this contact? Yes. Yes, I was. I hit confirm. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against the nightstand. For a second, disoriented and half asleep, I thought it was her. That maybe blocking Jessica had been a dream, that I'd wake up to another desperate text, another half-assed attempt to reel me back in. But when I grabbed my phone, it wasn't Jessica. It was an unknown number. I frowned and answered. Hello. Silence. Then, a familiar voice. Low. Mocking. Damn, man. Didn't think you'd pick up. Ryan. My body went rigid. I sat up, gripping the phone tighter. How the hell did you get my number? Ryan chuckled. Jessica, obviously. Of course. Even now, she was still causing damage. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my pulse spiking. What do you want? Ryan sighed like this was all one big inconvenience. Look, I'm gonna be straight with you. Jess came crawling back to you. Didn't she? I didn't answer. He took my silence as confirmation. I figured, he muttered. You probably think she's some helpless little victim now, don't you? I clenched my jaw. What's your point? My point, he said, voice darkening, is that she's full of shit. I stilled. Ryan exhaled sharply. She's playing you, dude. She always plays people. First me, now you. He let out a bitter laugh. She told you I grabbed her? That I scared her. My grip tightened on the phone. She didn't just tell me. She showed up at her mom's house shaking like a leaf. Ryan scoffed. Right? Because she's so innocent. I frowned. What the hell are you saying? I'm saying she's a liar, Michael. He paused, then added. She left me first. Packed her shit in the middle of the night. Didn't even have the guts to break it off like an adult. I woke up, and she was gone. I blinked. That wasn't what she told me. Ryan kept going. Then, hours later, she's suddenly crying to you, saying I'm some abusive psycho? Nah, that's not what happened. She's just flipping the script now because she doesn't want to be the bad guy. My mind raced. You put your hands on her, Ryan. His voice was flat. Yeah, and she put her hands on me first. The air in my lungs turned ice cold. What? She slapped me, Ryan said casually. I grabbed her wrist to stop her from doing it again. That's it. But of course she didn't tell you that part. Huh. I rubbed my temple, trying to process. She's good at this, Ryan continued. Real good. She lies so smoothly you don't even realize it's happening. My stomach twisted. Was he lying? Was she? Ryan sighed, his voice shifting into something almost sympathetic. Look, man, I don't expect you to believe me. Hell, I wouldn't if I were you. But you know who she is. You've seen it. I squeezed my eyes shut. Jessica. In my kitchen with Ryan, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Jessica. Rolling her eyes when I confronted her, calling me dramatic. Jessica. Leaving with him. I didn't want to believe him, but I knew what I had seen. Ryan let out one final breath. Good luck, man. Then he hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, the weight of it all pressing down on me like 1,000 bricks. Jessica had betrayed me, but now I had to ask myself, had she ever told me the truth? I sat there, gripping my phone, my mind a mess of static. Jessica had lied to me before. That was a fact. She had hidden an entire affair right under my nose, gaslit me, made me feel like I was the problem while she was out with him. But now, she wanted me to believe she was the victim? And Ryan was a smug, arrogant piece of garbage. But was he lying? Or had Jessica just done what she always did? Manipulated, twisted the truth, made herself look like the wounded party while conveniently erasing her own sins. I didn't want to call her. I shouldn't have called her. But I needed to hear her voice when I asked her the one question that would tell me everything. I scrolled through my contacts, past her old messages, past the years of texts that meant nothing now, and hit unblock. Then, before I could second-guess myself, I called her. It barely rang twice before she answered. Michael! Her voice was breathless, like she had been waiting by the phone. You unblocked me? Why did you lie? I cut straight to it. Jessica went silent. I leaned forward, my elbows on my knees. Ryan called me. Her breath hitched. Michael, he's lying. I laughed. But there was no humor in it. That's funny. Because that's exactly what he said about you. Jessica rushed to defend herself. Michael, he grabbed me. He was furious after you left. He said awful things. You slapped him. Silence. A deep, suffocating silence that told me everything I needed to know. She had been caught. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling sharply. So that part just slipped your mind, huh? Jessica stammered, scrambling for an excuse. I was scared. No, I snapped. You weren't scared, Jess. You were cornered. You realized you had nowhere else to go. So you ran back to me. And you lied. She let out a shaky breath. I didn't mean to. Stop saying that. My voice cracked, raw and furious. Stop acting like this is some accident. Like you tripped and fell into months of cheating, months of playing me. Jessica started crying. Big, gasping sobs. But this time I felt nothing. No guilt. No sympathy. Just cold, hard exhaustion. She had spent months betraying me. Months. And now, she had the nerve to beg for my forgiveness while still twisting the truth to make herself look like the victim. I wasn't playing her game anymore. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Then I said the words I should have said a long time ago. I want a divorce. Jessica sucked in a breath. Michael, I hung up. And this time I meant it. I was done. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were on the table. Jessica sat across from me, her fingers trembling as she flipped through them. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted, hollowed out. But I wasn't falling for it. She had done this to herself. She had lied, cheated, manipulated, and now she had to live with the consequences. She glanced up at me, her lower lip quivering. Michael? No, my voice was firm, final. You don't get to cry. You don't get to act like you're the victim here. Her breath hitched. I never wanted this. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. And yet, here we are. She swallowed, blinking rapidly. You love me. It wasn't a question. It was a desperate statement. One last lifeline she was throwing out, hoping I'd grab onto it. I held her gaze steady and cold. I did. The words crushed whatever hope was left in her eyes. Jessica looked down, her shoulders shaking. For a second, I thought she might get up and walk away. But instead, she grabbed the pen and, hands unsteady, signed her name. Just like that, it was over. She lingered for a moment, staring at the ink like she could undo it if she just wished hard enough. Then she whispered, Do you ever think about how things could have been if I hadn't? No, I cut her off. Because that version of you never existed. Jessica let out a broken sound. I pushed the papers toward my lawyer and stood up. Goodbye, Jessica. She didn't say anything. She just watched as I walked away, for the last time. That night, I sat on my balcony, staring out at the city, feeling lighter than I had in months. Jessica was gone. The betrayal, the lies, the weight of it all gone. And for the first time, I wasn't looking back. I was looking forward.